What is information architecture? What's the difference between information architecture and UX design? And what does an information architect do? In this video, we're going to dive into that and more. And hey friends, my name is Josh and I have over 10 years of experience in technical writing, and I'm also the founder of Technical Writer HQ. And this video is for technical writers and UX designers and anyone else who wants to learn more about information architecture. Before we dive into all that though, take a moment to subscribe to our channel, and that way you don't miss any of our future videos on related topics. Now let's go ahead and jump in. According to the Information Architecture Institute, information architecture is about helping people understand their surroundings and find what they're looking for in the real world as well as online. Even though we'll be focusing mainly on the digital world, it's important to remember that information architecture is also relevant to the analog world that we live in. The growth of the internet exploded in the 1990s, and small sites grew into big messes leading to usability problems and content management nightmares, as well as costly redesigns. People realized that planning was required for online content. In essence, what architects do for buildings, information architects do for websites, software, and interactive services. Content is a reason people visit websites. Now let's take the example of a website with a product knowledge base that is made up of multiple topics and subtopics. If visitors can find content they're looking for easily in the least possible time, then they'll have the best experience with the website. If, however, finding information is difficult or takes too much time, then users will have a really bad experience. And when people abandon a website or an app with a bad experience, it's more difficult to bring them back. This is where information architecture plays a key role in producing content that users will find valuable and is also easy to find. At this point, you may be wondering about the similarities between UX design and information architecture. Even though the two are closely related, they are not the same. User experience, or UX, is the way a person thinks and feels while using a product, system, or service. UX designers work to enhance a user experience by incorporating utility, usability, and enjoyment into product use. At the same time, it's nearly impossible to create a good user experience without a solid information architecture foundation. That's why every good UX designer should also be a competent information architect. And here's an example of good information architecture design. You'll see the related articles on the left-hand side and the table of contents on the right-hand side of this article for easy navigation. The internal links are ordered by user intent based on where they'd like to go next. Google understands that the user likes this article more through bounce rates, time on page, and other metrics that they track. As a result, this page ranks better in Google because of its information architecture UX. Information architecture has roots in various fields, including architecture. The term information architecture was coined by Richard Saul Wurman, who is a graphic designer and an architect. Wurman believed that information should be structured in the same way as a building, with a precise, intentional structure and a solid foundation of ideas. Cognitive psychology is the study of how the human mind works, including the mental activities that take place in the brain and the different factors that influence human perception. Information architects rely on cognitive psychology to organize information within their products. And key elements of cognitive psychology that are the most relevant for information architecture include mental models. So mental models are assumptions that people have in their minds about how the world works. And when information architecture practitioners take the mental models of their users into account, then they create content with a structure that makes it easier to discover information. And we have cognitive load. Cognitive load is the amount of brain power that a user has to invest in completing a task. In the context of information architecture design, cognitive load is the amount of information that a user can process at any given moment. When information architecture practitioners take the cognitive load of their users into account, they create content with a structure that puts the least amount of load on users' cognitive abilities. And we have decision making. Information architects create content that allows for easy decision making through providing information at the right time, providing an appropriate number of choices. Information architects also spend their time structuring content so it's easy for users to find what they're looking for. The more content a product has, the more significant is the role of information architecture in the UX design process. Here are a few common activities that an information architect performs on a daily basis. We have user research. Great product design starts with great user research. Researching what users need and want is critical for creating this effective IA, or information architecture design. And through research, information architects can learn how the target audience thinks when they search for information. This will help them organize the information in a way that meets the user's needs. And information architects will take an active part in user interviews. Information architects will join other team members to ask questions related to product design. And they also participate with card sorting and tree testing sessions, seeing how prospective users categorize information to groups, which helps information architects understand users' mental models. And they also focus on usability testing. So the access to the results of usability tests helps information architects determine whether the structure they've created works for their users. And we have contextual inquiries. Information architects also interact with users in real-world environments to see how they interact with a product. And content inventory, grouping, and audit is also an important piece. Information architects should have a good understanding of the content that the product offers. And content inventory, grouping, and audit help them with this. Content inventory shows information architects what content they have and where it lives. Content grouping identifies a relationship between the information, so you can think of things like categories and tags. And content audits give the information architect insight into how useful, accurate, and effective the content is. And we have taxonomies and labeling. Taxonomy is the practice of organizing and classifying items based on similarities. This exercise typically follows the user research and content inventory processes. The information architect might classify the items using categories, sections, or metadata tags. And during this process, it's important to remember that the product's content and functionality will grow, so the way it's organized must be easily scalable. And we have creating hierarchy and navigation. Hierarchy and navigation are two essential components that play into information architecture. Hierarchy defines the structure of content, while navigation defines how users will move through it. In order to create a hierarchy, the information architect needs to consider what the user expects to see, as well as how the business wants to show the information. At this step, practitioners think about typical scenarios of user to product interaction and use this information to design information architecture diagrams. Usually these diagrams are in a sitemap format that illustrates the hierarchy of the content across a website. And next we have prototyping. So an information architect may also create simple, low-fidelity prototypes to demonstrate the hierarchy of information navigation. Based on the information gathered during the research phase, the architect sketches out the idea to show what screens the product will have, what content will be on those screens, and how to arrange it. Usually, information architects create clickable wireframes with a limited number of graphic elements. And later, visual designers use these clickable wireframes as a reference when they create the actual layouts. And there you have it. We just went over what is information architecture, what's the difference between information architecture and UX design, and what does an information architect do? And thank you for watching this video and sticking with us all the way to the end. Again, my name is Josh. I'm the founder of Technical Writer HQ. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure to like it, subscribe to our channel so you can keep up to date with everything technical writing, information architecture, and documentation. And of course, if you have any questions or comments, make sure to put them below the video and we'll go ahead and respond to them. And I'll see you on some of our following videos and we'll rock and roll from here. Cheers.